In the mountainous highlands of Lika, in what was then the Austrian Empire, thunder did not merely fall from the sky, it spoke. And in the village of Smiljan, nestled among pine forests and limestone ridges, a boy learned to listen. Nikola Tesla was born on July 10, 1856, into a world lit by candles and ruled by faith. His father, Smiljan Tesla, was an Orthodox priest whose sermons echoed through stone chapels, urging obedience to God and order. His mother, Georgina Kuka Tesla, never learned to read, but her mind was a forge of invention. She crafted household tools from scrap metal, wove intricate patterns by memory, and recited epic Serbian poems that stretched for hours. From her, Nikola inherited not just intelligence, but a quiet, relentless creativity. Even as a child, Tesla's mind operated like a machine in perfect calibration. At age 5, he built a water wheel so precisely balanced it spun without vibration, inspired by a single illustration in a book. At 7, he dismantled and reassembled pocket watches just to understand their rhythm. But his true awakening came at 9, during a near-fatal illness. Lying feverish in bed, he saw a vision. A turbine spinning inside a river, its blades cutting water with impossible grace, generating endless power. The image was so vivid, it felt more real than the room around him. From that moment on, his imagination became a theater of engineering. Machines ran in his mind before they existed in the world. Blueprints formed in silence. Equations solved themselves in dreams. He attended gymnasium in Karlovac, where professors noted his unusual memory. He could recite entire textbooks after one reading. He spoke Serbo-Croatian, German, French, Italian, English, Czech, Hungarian, and Latin, but brilliance isolated him. Classmates called him the Phantom for his habit of staring into space, lost in thought. He suffered from vivid flashes of light that accompanied his ideas, so intense they sometimes blinded him. Yet he refused to see them as weakness. They were signals, messages from a deeper layer of reality. In 1875, he enrolled at the Austrian Polytechnic in Graz. There, he saw his first Gram dynamo, a DC generator, with a commutator that sparked and sputtered with every rotation. The professor claimed it was the pinnacle of electrical engineering. Tesla disagreed. He proposed eliminating the commutator entirely, using alternating currents to create a rotating magnetic field. The class laughed. The professor said, "Young man, you are trying to square the circle." But Tesla knew the future wasn't in sparks. It was in fields. He left university before graduating, not from failure, but from the unbearable slowness of a world that couldn't keep up with his mind. He worked as a draftsman in Budapest, then as an electrical engineer in Prague. All the while, the vision of that silent, brushless motor grew clearer. He would not build it in a classroom. He would build it in the heart of the New World America. By 1882, Tesla had sketched the first complete design of an alternating current induction motor in the sand of a Budapest park. It had no brushes, no commutator, no sparks, just coils, currents, and a rotating magnetic field. 5 years later, he would patent it. But for now, it lived only in his mind, a secret promise to the future. The storm child had found his language, and soon the world would hear it. On June 6, 1884, Nikola Tesla stepped onto the docks of New York City with 4 cents in his pocket, a book of poetry, and a letter of introduction to Thomas Edison. The letter read, "I know of 2 great men. One is you. The other is this young man." Edison, already a legend for the phonograph and the light bulb, received him coolly. He needed hands, not visions. Tesla was put to work in the Edison Machine Works on Gork Street, repairing dynamos through the night, surviving on coffee and silence. Edison's empire ran on direct current DC electricity. It was brute force engineering, thick copper wires, power stations every mile, limited range, constant maintenance. Tesla saw waste everywhere. He proposed redesigning the dynamos using alternating current principles, lighter coils, higher efficiency, no commutator sparking. Edison scoffed. AC is a fantasy, he said. The public will never accept it. But Tesla persisted. He redesigned Edison's generators in secret, improving efficiency by over 30%. When he presented the results, Edison promised him $50,000 a fortune. Tesla worked tirelessly for months, often sleeping on the factory floor. When the job was done, he asked for his reward. Edison laughed. "Tesla, you don't understand our American humor." The betrayal cut deep not because of the money, but because it confirmed his worst fear. That vision meant nothing without power. Tesla resigned the next day. For a time, he dug ditches to survive, laying cables for the very system he sought to replace. But even in the mud, his mind raced. He sketched motors in the dirt. He calculated phase shifts in his head. He knew a C wasn't just better, it was inevitable. In 1887, with the help of two investors, he opened his own laboratory on Liberty Street. There, he built the first working models of his polyphase AC system. He filed 7 foundational patents in just 6 months, covering generators, transformers, transmission lines, and the induction motor. The patents were so comprehensive, they formed a complete ecosystem of power. No single component could be removed without collapsing the whole. The scientific community took notice. The American Institute of Electrical Engineers invited him to speak. On May 16, 1888, Tesla stood before the nation as top engineers and demonstrated a motor that ran in perfect silence powered by invisible rotating fields. The audience was stunned. Among them was Charles Batchelor, Edison's former partner, who immediately wired George Westinghouse. "We saw Tesla's AC system today. It is the future." Westinghouse, a Pittsburgh industrialist known for his air brakes and bold bets, came to New York within weeks. He saw in Tesla not just an inventor, but a prophet of a new age. He offered $60,000 for the patent's $5,000 in cash, 150 shares of stock, and $2.50 per horsepower sold. Tesla accepted, not for the money, but for the chance to build his dream. As Westinghouse's team studied the patents, Edison launched a war. He called AC the executioner's current. He electrocuted animals in public. He backed the electric chair. But Tesla remained calm. He knew the truth couldn't be drowned in propaganda. Electricity, like light, follows the path of least resistance. And the world was finally ready to conduct it. The year 1888 marked the beginning of a battle not fought with cannons, but with currents. On one side stood Thomas Edison, the king of direct current, a man who built his empire on patents, publicity, and power. On the other stood Nikola Tesla, a quiet visionary backed by George Westinghouse, armed with nothing but rotating magnetic fields and the elegance of alternating current. This was the war of currents, and its outcome would electrify the modern world. Edison knew he was losing. AC systems were cheaper, more efficient, and could transmit power over dozens of miles, unlike DC, which died after a single city block. Desperate, he turned not to science, but to fear. He launched a brutal propaganda campaign, branding AC as the executioner's current. In public demonstrations, he electrocuted dogs, calves, even a circus elephant named Topsy, all using Westinghouse's AC generators. Newspapers screamed headlines, "AC kills in seconds." He even helped design the first electric chair, ensuring it used a console that to Westinghouse became slang for execution. But Tesla refused to fight with fear. His weapon was demonstration. In Westinghouse's Pittsburgh labs, he and his engineers refined the polyphase system 3-phase generators, step-up transformers, induction motors that ran without a single spark. They installed AC streetlights in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. They powered entire factories in Buffalo. The results spoke louder than Edison's theatrics. AC was safer, cleaner, and infinitely scalable. The turning point came in 1893. Chicago was hosting the world's Columbian Exposition, a grand celebration of human progress on the 400th anniversary of Columbus's voyage. The fair's organizers wanted to light the entire grounds, but Edison's bid of $1.8 million was too steep. Westinghouse, using Tesla's patents, bid just $399,000 and won. It was a gamble that would define the century. On the night of May 1, 1893, President Grover Cleveland pressed a golden telegraph key, and in an instant, over 100,000 incandescent bulbs blazed to life powered entirely by Tesla's alternating current. The White City glowed like a dream. Marble buildings bathed in electric light, fountains dancing to hidden motors, arc lamps casting soft halos over gardens. Visitors wept. Engineers stood in awe. For the first time, electricity felt not like a utility, but like magic. Inside the electricity building, Tesla unveiled his masterpiece, the Egg of Columbus. A copper egg stood upright on a wooden table, spinning rapidly from an invisible rotating magnetic field beneath it. No wires, no contact. He lit wireless gas-filled tubes in his bare hands. He powered motors with a single conductor. He made electricity seem alive, intelligent, and benevolent. The fair was a triumph. After it closed, over 80% of all new electrical orders in the United States were for AC systems. Edison General Electric merged with another company and quietly rebranded as General Electric, abandoning DC in all but name. The war was over. Tesla had won not with violence, but with vision. But victory brought no rest. As crowds celebrated the White City, Tesla was already dreaming of something greater. Not just wires across land, but energy through the air. If electricity could light a fair without sparks, why not light the world without wires? The fair was not an ending. It was a spark. And Tesla was about to set the sky on fire. After the triumph of the Chicago World's Fair, the world believed in alternating current, but belief alone could not power a nation. The true test of Tesla's system would not come from a temporary spectacle, but from one of Earth's most eternal forces, Niagara Falls. For centuries, the Horseshoe Falls had thundered with raw, untamed energy, 3,000 tons of water crashing every second, a monument to nature's power. Engineers had long dreamed of harnessing it, but no system could transmit that energy beyond the riverbank. Until Tesla. In 1890, a group of investors formed the Cataract Construction Company with a bold mission: to build the first large-scale hydroelectric plant in human history. They consulted the world's greatest minds, Lord Kelvin in London, Elihu Thomson in Boston, even Edison himself. Most advised caution. Some said it was impossible. Then they met Nikola Tesla. Tesla did not arrive with blueprints. He arrived with certainty. He explained that his polyphase AC system could convert the waterfall's mechanical energy into electrical energy, step it up to high voltage for transmission, and send it cleanly over dozens of miles with minimal loss. The key was resonance, the perfect harmony between generator, transformer, and motor. No sparks, no waste, just pure, silent flow. George Westinghouse won the contract in 1893, beating out General Electric by promising a fully integrated Tesla-based system. Construction began at the base of the cliffs, where engineers blasted tunnels through solid rock and erected massive steel frames. At the heart of the plant stood Tesla's two-phase generators, each weighing over 50 tons, with armatures spinning at 250 revolutions per minute, designed to produce 1,000 horsepower of alternating current. While the machinery rose from the earth, Tesla worked tirelessly in New York, refining every detail. He specified the exact gauge of copper wire, the angle of the turbine blades, the insulation for the transmission lines. He even calculated the harmonic resonance of the entire system to prevent destructive vibrations. This was not just engineering, it was orchestration. On November 16, 1895, the first generator roared to life. Water surged through penstocks, spun the turbines, and sent alternating current surging through thick cables toward Buffalo 26 miles away. Streetlights flickered on. Factory motors hummed. Trolleys rolled without coal or steam. For the first time in history, clean, renewable energy flowed from nature to civilization without smoke, without flame, without limit. The official dedication came on January 12, 1896. Tesla stood quietly among dignitaries and reporters. Dressed in a dark suit, his eyes fixed on the spinning turbines. When asked to speak, he simply said, "We have many possibilities yet to discover in the forces of nature." He did not boast. He did not claim credit. The roaring water and the humming transformers were his voice. Niagara Falls became the model for every power plant that followed. From the Hoover Dam to the Three Gorges, the language spoken was Tesla's. Polyphase alternating current, high-voltage transmission, grounded neutral systems. His AC grid became the skeleton of the modern world, carrying light, heat, and data to billions. Yet even as his system electrified continents, Tesla's mind had already moved beyond wires. If energy could flow from a waterfall to a city through copper, why not through the earth itself? Why not through the air? Niagara was not an end. It was proof. Proof that the impossible could be engineered. And with that proof in hand, Tesla turned his gaze upward to the sky, to the stars, and to the dream of wireless power. The age of wires had just begun, but Tesla was already building the age that would come after. While the world celebrated alternating current as the future of wired power, Nikola Tesla was already reaching beyond wires altogether. In a small laboratory on South Fifth Avenue in New York, later renamed West Broadway, he began a new kind of experiment, not with motors or dynamos, but with frequencies, with air, with the very fabric of space. His instrument? A device that would become his signature, the Tesla coil. Unlike conventional transformers that used iron cores and low frequencies, Tesla's coil was built for resonance. It had no iron-only copper wire wound in precise spirals around a hollow form, connected to capacitors and a spark gap. When energized, it didn't just step up voltage, it sang. At frequencies between 50,000 and 1 million hertz, it transformed ordinary electricity into something ethereal. High-frequency alternating currents that could leap through the air as purple arcs, light bulbs from across a room, and pass harmlessly through the human body. He first demonstrated it on May 20, 1891, before the American Institute of Electrical Engineers at Columbia College. In a darkened hall, he held a gas-filled tube in one hand. It glowed brightly, though it was connected to nothing. He lit incandescent bulbs wirelessly. He passed currents through his own body to illuminate a lamp held in his other hand. The audience sat in stunned silence. This wasn't electricity as they knew it. This was something alive, responsive, elegant, almost spiritual. Over the next several years, Tesla turned his lab into a theater of invisible forces. He developed one-wire energy transmission powering lamps and motors with just a single conductor, the return path completed through capacitive coupling with the environment. He created phosphorescent displays that shimmered like stars. He built high-frequency oscillators that could heat metal without flame-early precursors to induction cooktops. He even experimented with early X-rays, calling them radiant energy, and warned of their dangers long before the medical world took notice. But his greatest fascination was wireless lighting. He filled his lab with Geissler tubes, Crookes tubes, and custom-made bulbs filled with neon, argon, and carbon dioxide. When energized by his coils, they glowed in colors no flame could produce: blue, violet, crimson, floating like ghosts in the dark. He saw in them a preview of the future, homes lit not by filaments, but by ambient fields. cities illuminated without poles or wires, energy as abundant as sunlight. He also sensed something deeper. During thunderstorms, his instruments picked up strange, rhythmic pulses, signals he believed came not from Earth, but from beyond. He speculated about communication with other planets, about energy beams that could circle the globe. Critics called him delusional, but Tesla wasn't guessing. He was listening. By 1899, he was ready to test his boldest theory, that the Earth itself could be used as a conductor. To do that, he needed more power, far more than a city lab could provide. So he packed his notebooks, his coils, and his dreams, and headed west to Colorado Springs, a high-altitude plain where thunderstorms raged almost nightly, and the air itself seemed charged with possibility. There, under open sky and endless stars, he would build his largest coil, yet not just to make lightning, but to ask the planet a question. And he was certain it would answer. A Tesla coil was never just a machine. It was a bridge between science and wonder, between the seen and the unseen. And in its crackling arcs, Tesla didn't just generate electricity. He revealed a universe humming with invisible energy, waiting only for someone brave enough to tune in. In the spring of 1899, Nikola Tesla left the noise of New York behind and journeyed west to the high plains of Colorado Springs. He chose this place deliberately, 6,000 feet above sea level, ringed by mountains, and struck by over 200 lightning storms a year. Here, the air was thin, the ground dry, and the electrical potential of the atmosphere immense. To Tesla, it wasn't just a location, it was a listening post for the planet. With funding from local investors and equipment shipped by rail, he built a laboratory unlike any the world had seen. At its center stood a wooden tower 50 feet tall, crowned with a copper sphere 6 feet in diameter. Coils as wide as a man's arms spiraled upward. A massive oscillator, his magnifying transmitter, sat on a concrete foundation, grounded by a network of iron pipes driven 300 feet into the earth. This was not a lab. It was an antenna aimed at the soul of the world. Tesla's goal was radical: to prove that the Earth itself could conduct electrical energy. He believed the planet was a charged body, surrounded by a conductive layer in the upper atmosphere. If he pulsed electricity into the ground at the right frequency, it would create standing waves, resonant vibrations, that could circle the globe and return to their origin. Anyone with a tuned receiver could tap into this energy anywhere, anytime, for free. On a summer night in 1899, he powered up the transmitter. Millions of volts surged into the ground. And then it happened. Artificial lightning, over 130 feet long, erupted from the tower, splitting the sky with deafening cracks. Horses bolted miles away. Windows shattered in nearby towns. The local power station's generator burned out. But Tesla wasn't making noise. He was listening. In his notebook, he wrote, "The Earth is literally alive with electrical vibrations." He claimed to have detected returning waves, proof that his impulse had traveled around the planet and come back to him. He calculated the Earth's resonant frequency at approximately 6 hertz, astonishingly close to the actual Schumann resonance of 7.83 hertz, a phenomenon not confirmed by science until the 1950s. He also demonstrated wireless power on a scale never seen before. He planted incandescent lamps in the ground hundreds of feet from the lab. When he activated the transmitter, they glowed: no wires, no batteries, just energy pulled from the Earth itself. In one experiment, he lit 200 bulbs buried in the soil at a distance of nearly a mile. To the locals, it seemed like sorcery. To Tesla, it was physics. He recorded everything: the voltage, the frequency, the harmonic overtones. He sketched waveforms that looked like musical scores. He believed he had unlocked the key to global communication and free energy. "When wireless is perfectly applied," he wrote, "the whole Earth will be converted into a huge brain." But isolation took its toll. He lived alone, ate only milk and crackers, worked through the night. He claimed to receive signals from Mars' rhythmic pulses he interpreted as intelligent communication. The press mocked him. Scientists dismissed him. Yet in his notebooks, the data was meticulous, the math precise. By early 1900, his funds ran out. He packed his instruments, shipped his notes back to New York, and left Colorado Springs behind. But he carried with him something greater than equipment. Proof. Proof that the earth resonated. Proof that energy could travel without wires. Proof that his dream was not fantasy, but physics waiting to be harnessed. He returned to the East not as a failure, but as a man who had touched the planet's electrical soul. And now, he was ready to build the tower that would speak to the world. In the spring of 1901, on a windswept bluff overlooking the Atlantic Ocean in Shoreham, Long Island, construction began on a tower that was meant to change the world. Designed by famed architect Stanford White and funded by J.P. Morgan, the Wardenclyffe Tower rose like a monument to a future that had not yet arrived. 187 feet tall, crowned with a 68-foot copper dome, rooted deep into the earth with iron pipes and saltwater wells. It was not a radio mast. It was a lightning rod for humanity's next leap. Tesla called it the centerpiece of his world wireless system. His vision was not merely to send messages across the ocean, as Marconi had just done, but to transmit electrical power itself, wirelessly, to every corner of the globe. Energy would flow through the earth and the upper atmosphere, accessible to anyone with a simple grounded rod and a tuned receiver. No meters. No bills, no monopolies. Just light, heat, and communication free for all. J.P. Morgan had invested $150,000, equivalent to over $5 million today, believing he was backing a transatlantic telegraph that could compete with Marconi. But when Tesla revealed his true ambition-free energy for everyone, Morgan was horrified. "Where do I put the meter?" he reportedly asked. Profit, not progress, was the engine of empire. And wireless power had no meter. In late 1901, Morgan withdrew further funding. Without it, construction stalled. The steel skeleton stood against the sea wind, half-finished, its copper crown gleaming under storm clouds. Tesla poured his own money into the project, selling patents, borrowing from friends, even pawning his laboratory equipment. But it wasn't enough. By 1906, work had ceased entirely. The dream was frozen in steel and silence. Meanwhile, the world moved on. Marconi's name became synonymous with radio, even though his system relied heavily on Tesla's patented oscillators, tuned circuits, and antenna designs. In 1909, Marconi won the Nobel Prize. Tesla received no such honor. He wandered the streets of New York, thinner, quieter, dressed in the same suit for weeks. He fed pigeons in Bryant Park, whispering to them as if they understood his loneliness. He claimed to love one white pigeon more than any human being. When she died, he later said, something went out of my life. He continued to invent sketching plans for vertical takeoff aircraft, particle beam weapons he called, teleforce, and global communication networks. But without funding, his ideas remained on paper. His name faded from newspapers, replaced by Edison's relentless self-promotion and Marconi's commercial triumphs. In 1915, rumors spread that Tesla and Edison would share the Nobel Prize. Neither ever confirmed it. But Tesla allegedly said he would refuse to share it with Edison, a man he believed had stolen credit and distorted truth. The prize went to others. By 1917, Wardenclyffe was a ghost. The tower stood rusting, its laboratory windows boarded. To settle debts, the property was sold to the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. In a final act of erasure, the tower was dynamited and sold for scrap. Its copper and steel melted down. Its dreams turned to dust. Yet even in ruin, Wardenclyffe spoke. It became a symbol not of failure, but of a vision too vast for its time. Tesla had not miscalculated the physics. He had miscalculated humanity's readiness to share. The tower never sang, but its silence echoes louder than most monuments ever could. On the night of January 7th, 1943, in room 3327 of the New Yorker Hotel, Nikola Tesla died alone. He was 86 years old. His room held little: a few books, unpaid bills, and stacks of handwritten notes filled with equations, diagrams, and dreams of cosmic communication. Outside, the city he helped electrify buzzed with lights, radios, and subways, all running on the alternating current system he had given to the world. Yet no headlines marked his passing. No headlines at all. Within hours, agents from the Office of Alien Property seized his belongings. The U.S. government, fearing his unpublished research, especially on directed energy weapons, might fall into enemy hands, classified everything. Even Einstein, consulted later, admitted Tesla's later work was too far ahead for our time. The man who had lit Chicago, harnessed Niagara, and spoken to thunder was buried in silence. For decades, his name faded. Edison became the face of invention. Marconi, the father of radio. Tesla was reduced to a footnote, a mad scientist caricature in old magazines, a ghost in the machine of progress. But frequencies never die. They echo. In 1960, the International Electrotechnical Commission did something extraordinary. They named the SI unit of magnetic flux density, the Tesla, in his honor, not after the businessman, not after the Nobel laureate, but after the man who saw invisible fields and built them into reality. And slowly, the world began to remember. Every time your smartphone charges on a wireless pad, it uses resonant inductive coupling, the same principle Tesla demonstrated with glowing bulbs in his 1890s lab. Every time an MRI machine maps the inside of your body, it uses powerful alternating magnetic fields measured in Teslas. Every time a satellite beams data across the planet, it relies on tuned circuits and grounded antennas, concepts Tesla patented before radio was a household word. Even your refrigerator, your ceiling fan, your electric car, they all hung with the quiet rhythm of his induction motor. In 2013, a grassroots campaign raised over $1.3 million to buy the abandoned Wardenclyffe site. Today, it is the Tesla Science Center, a museum and innovation lab where children build coils, engineers test wireless power, and visitors stand beneath a restored model of the tower that never sang. It is not a monument to failure. It is a promise kept. Elon Musk named his electric car company Tesla not just as homage, but as declaration. The future belongs to those who dare to reimagine energy. And in labs from Tokyo to Berlin, scientists are finally proving what Tesla sensed in Colorado Springs. The Earth does resonate. Wireless power over distance is no longer fantasy. It is physics refined. Projects like Witricity and long-range resonant transfer owe their DNA to his notebooks. Tesla was not a god, not a myth. He was a man who saw further than his time allowed. He failed to build his wireless world, not because he was wrong, but because the world wasn't ready to share it. Yet his greatest gift was not a patent or a coil. It was a question. What if energy belonged to everyone? That question still hums in every spark, every signal, every light that turns on without a wire. So the next time your screen glows in the dark, or your city lights up after sunset, or a storm rolls in with thunder that sounds like a voice, pause, look up, and thank the man who touched the future, so we could live inside it. The present is theirs. The future, for which I really worked, is mine. Nikola Tesla.